Well, let me go ahead and get started, and hopefully the people catch up. We are being recorded. Gary, I think, is going to do some editing on this and throw up on his website. We appreciate that very much. And I have given this years before, and I used to think I knew a little bit about N1M, but now that I'm getting it set up, I've forgotten so much, so I may not know quite as much as I used to. Feel free to ask. I don't BS. If I don't know the answer, I'll say, I don't know. Maybe somebody else can speak up and answer the question. So again, N1MM Plus, introduction, setup choices, and configurations lessons learned. Let me see. Oh yeah, I gotta get my pointer going here. Where is it? Laser pointer. And I can't use my mouse to go ahead. So there we are. Every installation is unique. People want to have a cookbook way of doing N1MM, but you're not going to have that. When I asked this a while back, who's using N1MM? What are you using? I've got this. One guy's using a FTDX 3000. He's got 3 COM ports and he uses RIDI CW and sideband. He's got an RSP1 PAN adapter. Another guy is using an FTT 91A. Was a previous Macintosh user. He uses something called 4Com, which, if I understand, is a non-ham program they use around the world to communicate. He does digital stuff on top of it, including SSTV and stuff like that. He's got an SDR. I've got single operator 2 radio capability and 2 different SDRs. The TS590s don't have a spectrum display built into them. I also have things like remote antenna switching, automatic antenna switching, and I've got multiple audio streams because I'm using micro-ham equipment and other things. So there isn't any way you can come up with a cookbook type of thing for this presentation, how to get the thing set up. So you're going to have to do some studying on your own, despite whatever help you can get out there about it. And one thing that'll be your best friend as time goes on here is the manual, which you can download at that address or just type in N1MM manual in Google and it'll take you to that particular website. And the thing about that is it's 700 page long and that actually 690, but that'll give you a clue for how much information is packed on the inside of this thing and also just how complicated this program can be. You're going to make mistakes. Don't worry about it. Say help or do your best to figure it out on your own. But in that 700 pages, you got general program info, examples and tips about how to do different things, third-party software, how to make it work and interface with N1MM, and they give you some actual macro examples and tips for how to use the different features to increase your rate. So it's well worth browsing the thing along through there as much as you can. When I first started using it, and I still do this to this day, and I've been using N1MM for probably coming up on almost 15 years now. I just pick up a manual and open it up. Sometimes I'll look through the table of contents and found some, oh, I was wondering about that, and I'll just take and read about it, or I'll just open it up to a random page and start reading. And it surprised me at first just how many useful tidbits of information I started picking up. And I became familiar with the manual at the same time. And I tried to do something new and said, I remember reading something about that. So start doing that if you haven't already, even if you're an experienced user. Inside of the manual, it tells you how to set up your radio. And most people are like me. I opened up and looked for something on a TS590. Here I've got a page that talks about how to set up an IC 7300. And you can see there's all kinds of information about different programs, Cat1 hexes to interface with it, the connectors that you need to connect and everything like that. And I said, okay, I got it all set up. And I went and I kept having problems. And I went back to that manual. And not only do they have it for the individual rigs, they've got it for brand. So things they don't mention in the individual radio are sometimes mentioned when they talk about the brand of radio, that particular section. And then I thought, well, if they got that, what else do they have? And they've actually got a thing for supported radios and just general information in there as well. So be sure to check all three when you're first setting your radio up. It'll save you a lot of problems. Another friend that you have is the N1MM reflector on Groups.io. I highly recommend you join that, even if you're an experienced user. You can set up to get every message that comes at you and bombarded. You'll get sick of that pretty quick because there's dozens of messages every day. And you can also set it up for daily and weekly downloads as well. But you can find a lot of answers there. But if you do join, this thing's been going for so many years, and other people have had the same questions you have, can almost guarantee it. And that's been asked somewhere in that reflector. So be nice to people and don't just throw it out. Do your homework first, try to find your own answer. And then before you ask the question, take the time to browse through the reflector. And just like the manual, you may find your answer, or you'll start picking up other things as well. And be sure you search the archives before you continue on. Another thing that's recently popped up is this artificial intelligence. And there are three of them out there. Of course, most people know about Chat GPT, and Google AI's got it. But according to the N1MM development team and some of the others, there's a AI out there called Perplexity, and it is supposedly one of the best, but it's not free. I think someday or other I may go ahead and join that just to see what it can do for you. It can actually write macros and Python software programs and stuff for you real well. And Perplexity is supposed to be the best. But here's an example. I asked Google AI. I typed in N1MM how to set up a repeating CQ, and the answer come back. Alt plus R shortcut to toggle the mode on. Control R to set the repeat interval in seconds or milliseconds. When the repeat mode is enabled, a red R will appear next to the transmit LED, and then N1MM will automatically resend your CQ after a delay defined by Control R. So you can get all this information just by asking Google AI, which would be another source for you. I encourage you, though, if you do have a question that you get answered on Google AI, to post that question on the reflector and what your answer was, just to let everybody know that that's trying to search the reflector for similar type problems. I don't think very many people do that, but I think it's a good thing to do for the community as a whole. Software setup. Don't let N1MM install on Microsoft OneDrive. I can't begin to count how many times somebody on the reflector has said, "What's wrong? What's wrong? I can't do this, can't do that," and they've installed their N1MM up on OneDrive. And what happens or can happen there is OneDrive does not sync with N1MM when you're actually in the middle of a contest. The database is updated almost continuously as you're contesting and adding things back and forth to it, but it's not syncing with what's up on the cloud, and it just causes some database error and corruptions or whatnot. So don't let it install on Microsoft OneDrive. Find some other place to put it. An example might be up there in this section here, CHAM N1MM, right off the directory of your C drive on there. And your executable files will go into program files x86 on 64-bit systems. But it'll also have in your documents, wherever it'll be, you'll have all these other things, database or any files which talk about configuration of the software, your error logs, your macro files and wave files. All that stuff will be wherever you tell it to do. It'll try to install by default on Windows up on OneDrive. Don't let it. And digital engine files, by the same token, put them somewhere else too. Don't let them go anywhere on OneDrive as well. One thing that's kind of good about installation is you can store these files. We'll talk about this a little bit more later on, for a specific contest. So you can have macros set up for NAQP. You can have macros set up for the Worked All Germany. You have them set up for the CQ Worldwide. And that way you don't have to recreate the wheel every time that you're going. You can just save these things in this data in the folder up there and just call them up and assign them to your latest contest, and that works real well. Here's some other tricks you can do too. By the same token, you can export ADF files for upload into Log of the World or whatever general logging programs you have. N1MM does not make a very good general logger, but it'll work. So a lot of people choose to transfer the information via ADF file to the other loggers. And you can do the same thing if you're using another database. You can import ADF IF files from another logging program into N1MM2. Hopefully you'll get the same information transfer, but that's not always the case. When you first log in, it'll tell you need to station your station information. Pretty self-explanatory for the most part. Call, name, where you're at, grid square, etc., latitude and longitude, South Carolina. And this is where the club goes, Swamp Fox Contest Club. Don't try to abbreviate it. Make sure you type that out exactly, and your email address. Whatever call you have in here in this call field, N4XL, that's what's going to appear in your Cabrillo file and be entered. So if you're one of the people who use different calls for different things, like say you want to use the Whiskey 4 Sugar Fox call for a contest sometime, you ought to have a different database set up and put WW4SF in here. Otherwise, you got to do some major editing of your Cabrillo file to get the right call sign. So again, here, use separate database for each call sign. And that's pretty much what I just said. And another thing in the macros, which are do fancy things, we'll talk about them more a little bit later on in here, but we'll really get into some neat little tricks and things in the next presentation of N1MM. You can use this my call, and it'll go back to that station information field and pull N4XL. So anywhere that appears, it'll use N4XL, and that little asterisk will do the same thing, brings in your call as well. So what you put on that station information for a call is pretty important for operation, smooth operation, and log entry. I like to create a sandbox database, whatever you want to call it. It's a place for playing around. That's why most people know the term sandbox. I call mine test, but it's a sandbox. And whenever I'm setting up a contest, I do it in this sandbox so that I don't screw up my main contest log somehow and overwrite things, or sometimes I'll load the past contest and then I'll start deleting or playing around with the contacts. You can screw things up a bit. So create it in the sandbox, play around with it, get everything working. And then they got the ability in there to go to File, copy this contest to another database, and then dump it into your main contest database. And it's good to set up a separate database again for each call that you use, so you don't get them all intermixed in your contest log. If you try to upload everything in Log of the World, you can download all contests for Log of the World. So just set them up separately. Another thing that said this any file was for configuration of how you set up N1MM. You'll obviously have a little different desktop layout if you're doing a digital contest than you will if you're doing NAQP, for example. Or if you're some things you do single operator 2 radio, and another time you single op, you'll probably have a different layout how it is. And you may want different colors or windows open. All that stuff gets stored in this ini file. And Bill, N4IQ, is really good at this. He saves an ini file for every single contest he operates. Then when it comes up again, say it's a ready contest, and last one he did was an NAQP. When the next year comes around, he just pulls up that ini file for last year's contest, and he's got everything laid out ready to go. And there's a thing in the your friend the manual that tells you how to about go and doing all that type of stuff. Right here is what you get when you click on the file. Up here, create a new database, open an existing database. So if you're in your contest database and you want to play with Sandbox, you go to open, open up your sandbox, do what you got to do, and you can open a log that's in your database or create a new log that's in your database, however that goes. Here's where you can copy the contest to another database or all the contests to another database. I've done that a few times. Generate a Cabrillo file, import and export things. And if you're doing one of those state QSO party weekends where there's 3 or 4 different things, these are all the recent contests that you've had or done. And it comes in real handy during a weekend where you have 2 or 3 of these state QSO parties. You can hit, while you're in the middle of your entry window, Alt F, it'll bring this up, and then you hit 1, 2, 3, whatever you want, and it'll open up the contest. So it's real easy to switch from the Nebraska QSO party to the Michigan QSO party or whatever, back and forth that way. So that's kind of a neat trick how to go about doing that. I think they've improved it more since I did this presentation too. Now, here you have the actual screen you get when you create a new contest or you open open an old contest that exists. Here you select single op, all, high, low power, mixed, CW, whatever, sideband, what your station is, if you're assisted or not, 1 or 2 transmitters. This is important. Your exchange, you think a lot of times it's 595 or 59 South Carolina. Notice it says omit the RST. All you want to put is in the 5. Sometimes people put in, I did this before, put in 59 space 5. And then when I was using N1MM and I told it to send my exchange, it had 59 in it. And then it went to here. N1MM transmitted 59 from the entry window. But then it looked to see what the exchange was, and there was another 59 here, so it sends 59 twice. So that's why you just want the data, just the facts, ma'am. And you don't have to put your call in there necessarily, but it's good to do that just on general principles. And you go ahead and you click on this up here, that drop down arrow, and all kinds of contests come down. By the way, notice right here, state for QSO party, there's nothing there. It's just blank. So a lot of times that confuses people how to get a QSO party. Go ahead and get that, and I'll come back to this. When you get a QSO party, this is a drop-down list, and you go ahead and you click on that. As soon as you click on that, back on this screen a minute ago, this now has a drop-down populates, and then you can choose whatever your state is. And back to the weekends where you have more than one party going on, you would set up 3 different logs for each one of them. You go through this process for each one of the state QSO parties you're doing. But back to here, this screen again, we got this tab for associated files. And let me see. This is the associated file tab. You can assign your macro or your function keys, F1, F2, F3, a macro file for that, which says how to define what those F1, 2, 3, and 4 do, etc. And you can click on that to change and make that be whatever you want. You've also got one for sideband and digital. And then these are your super check partials, which help you identify stations that you only got a partial call, or call history lets you know where they said they were last time, what the exchange was. We'll go into that in another presentation down the road a little bit more. Also, right off the main page of the N1MM system, it says you can open up the configurer. And when you open, we'll see what that looks like in a minute or two. But in the configurer, this is where you start setting up all the hardware things for your radio. Set it a port for it. You drop down and you choose what your radio is. Sometimes your radio might not be listed. Most of the newer ones are. But if it isn't listed and you know there's a similar model, like they actually have these, but a TS570 is similar to a TS590, You might try and you didn't 590, you might try a 570 or vice versa. Sometimes you can get away with that. And that's how you set those up. And then you click on this thing for set. And we'll get to that in a second, evidently. Down here for COM19, this means it's not a radio. You've got some other function going on, like a foot switch or some type of thing, like my microham micro keyer is here on COM2, and radio interface is there as well. This is that thing I was talking about, your entry window. Hit config, and then you click on this configure ports mode control, and that's where you come up with that thing I just showed you about where the radios are. It's a good idea to look down each one of these and learn what they are. Play with that manual a little bit and figure them out. But here's what mine actually looks like. I've got the two 590s. I go through that. I selected single operator 2 radio and COM3 and set. And sometimes here you'll have an asterisk, like that would read COM21 asterisk. That means some other program has the port open. So N1MM isn't going to be able to open that port, and it's not going to work correctly. So if things aren't working right, scan that list a little bit. But when you go into your radio, I got these out of order, sorry about that. You click on that set thing behind the radio. Here's your speed communication for the rig itself, what your DTR and RTS are. Very few rigs used to use handshake. TS590 does. They usually tell you in the instructions you find for things, don't use handshake, but it works okay with the 590s now. And you have to make sure that everything that you're using, like my antenna switches and things, read what my radio frequency band and all that is. I got to make sure that that stuff is reading at the same speed and parity bits, that data bits that this is. So make sure everything that is feeding from your rig is talking the same language right there. And sometimes you may have to go, if it doesn't work. This is rare, but I ran across it once where I had to actually go into the Windows COM port and configure the COM port to be the same speed as the piece of equipment that I was working. So you think N1M screwed up, but that's actually a Windows issue or the other software program issue. These things confused the heck out of me for a long time, and then I found that some instructions say don't check them, no reason to check them. And that's not quite true. You usually ought to leave those things unchecked. But there are times when you want to enable these things. Let me get back here again, where you do want to get those check boxes. And the N1MM reflector had a thing that says for an IC 746 Pro using the signal link, the guy couldn't get his signal link to actually start transmitting. He'd see a red light come on, but the rig wouldn't do anything. And what was going on there is the software basically was not sending the signal. The signal link couldn't pick up that the N1MM was telling everything to go into transmit mode. So you had to tell, in this case, check one of those boxes so that the signal link knew that it was supposed to generate a push-to-talk signal and let that key the rig through N1MM. So that's when you would use that. And Bill, N4IQ, does a lot of digital stuff. He mentioned that another time you may have to do it is not just with a hardware signal link, but with FL-Digi. Is another time where you might use that push-to-talk thing. So here we got a couple other things. That's where those are. Allow external interrupts. Those are used for things like foot switches. You can actually set up a foot switch and have N1MM activate function keys F1, F3 for you just by pushing a foot switch. A little more to it than is easy, but that can be done. And enable both hardware and software push-to-talk. You normally shouldn't do that. It can confuse the program and actually end up causing your radio to hang up at the end of CW or RIDI messages. So you normally don't want to do that unless you're talking with somebody about how to solve it. I didn't mention anything about this, but sometimes you can get slower computers, some problems. you can adjust that polling rate speed and solve some of your problems by fiddling around with that as well. We already went through this already. The function keys, again, we'll talk about these in another program, but just briefly here. These are typically a standard setup. You shouldn't really fiddle with those, although you can make that be your call if you want to, and that be a thank you. That's a standard configuration that you ought to get used to using in case you go and use somebody else's program somewhere, or if you try to download somebody else's macro files, they're probably set up as those being the standard ones. I use all 12 of them. F11, I've got, you can ask questions with a macro, what's your call, what's your call? And F12, if I decide I can't pull somebody in or I get tired of trying to break the pile up, I hit F12 and it wipes the call sign and any other information I have in the entry window out. So you can do all that stuff with the F keys. Here's where they are in the entry window. As you see, I've got a name for every single one of these things. And another thing to talk about, I don't know if I selected or not, you've got different F keys for both run and search and pounce mode. So be sure you are setting it up for whichever particular mode you're trying to set it up for. And another thing is, I think I mentioned this later, but I'm not sure. There are 12 of these things. And sometimes people think I'm only going to use the first 4, so I don't need to have the rest. And they set that up for run and then they do search and pounce. But the way the program works, it expects every one of these to be filled so that it can get the right message when you switch back and forth. So always populate these things, even if you just put like a dash in there, leave it blank. Always have an F1 through F12 for both run and search and pounce fields. There's a heck of a lot on this window. We'll talk about it in another program. Here's what the messages look like for each one of them. Test N4XL. This is for CW, probably for RIDI too. I don't do digital, but sideband works the same way. It just got a different configuration to call up the wave files for it. Pretty much self-explanatory as you go down. Oh, put a comma in here that breaks what you'll see on the excuse me, entry window separate from the actual message that's sent. And that's the symbol for macro that'll wipe everything out. It won't send anything, it'll just perform an action. In the Documents N1MM program, notice it says that's on this PC. It's not up on OneDrive. This is the folder in Documents for N1MM Logger, and that's where all the history files and everything's all set. So if you go looking for stuff, where do I find my downloads and all that type of thing, it's all right in this section, this folder right here. But I've mainly wanted this to pull up to show you this block right here. That's the main configuration file for N1MM Logger Ini. And there's going to be a time where something gets screwed up. You're going to swear it's not you, but it probably is. But or something's called corrupted in it, whatever the case may be. But notice not just that configuration, there are backups, in this case for every day of the week. And the good thing about this is if you're playing around in your sandbox and you screw something up and you say, I just can't fix it, and you figure this is corrupted, you can rename this something so that it's no longer N1MM Ini, and then you can rename this to N1MM Logger Ini, like drop all that stuff off, and you'll return to a configuration you had when it actually was working. So it's a great way to help solve some of your problems. Of course, you lose anything that you did in between this backup and then, but it allows you to start over with a relatively, not a complete clean slate, but a working configuration. Again, this is where the config is, and you have all these different types of things. Good idea to read the manual. I wanted to talk about this here. We've covered some about them. We'll get some more of those later in station data, but this is kind of important in Windows. If you leave Windows selected, you click on that, this will pop up for playback. if you leave it default, any Windows sound or things that come in will go right over your transmitter. So it's highly recommended you do not select this logger to be your default sound card. I use mine for some other type of weird thing that's not being used. Like I don't use that for my Zonar sound card. I'll set that as my default, and then I will select whatever my audio trace is coming out to be feeding N1MM. Now, if you don't have multiple audio streams and stuff, obviously you're going to use the default, but then you need to go into Windows and turn off all your Windows sounds so that they don't come out over the air. This is an example of what a default device is on your Windows and things. And default communications device, you don't want that necessarily be there either. So they go over all that a little bit in some of the N1MM manual. Back to configure, you have the function keys. By the way, are there any questions? I've been rambling here for a long time. Okay. On this function keys in the configure, some of the things I like to do, if I'm sending a CQ and I don't have my hands on the keyboard and somebody answers me and it's an auto repeat CQ and I don't get my hands on the keyboard to start typing their call before the next CQ start, as soon as I start hitting like K4EX calls me and I start into auto CQ, as soon as I hit the K, the CQ stops. So that's a good thing to have checked. Some people like this if you get a guy's call wrong and they correct you on the call, you can correct this. So if you correct the call in your entry window, and it'll go ahead and send the corrected call at the end of your QSO so the guy knows you got his correction. And you always want to work dupes when you're running. I'm not going to spend time on that if you don't know. Go ahead and ask why that's a good thing to do. On the mode control, this can confuse a lot of people. You don't think
I
about
may
it.
have a question if you don't mind.
Okay.
This is Bob on the prior window there, where it says send partial calls. You don't use the check on that at all.
I don't. That's a matter of personal preference. Uh, I don't typically do that. I hit question mark instead of send partial call, or I just type the part I got, like K4, into the entry window, or K question mark E in the entry window, and that gets it done. Other people prefer to use the send partial calls. Works fine.
Okay.
Whatever you like. And this
Thank you.
isn't really important either. It speeds it up. Instead of 8 bits, it uses 7-bit sending a CW. Not a big deal. Some of the speed demons at 40, 50 mile an hour, like Matt or Dave, AFP, means something to them, but it doesn't mean anything to us normal mortals. All right. I didn't know about this for a long time, and it confused the heck out of me. And I've read on the reflector, it confused a lot of other people. You can tell N1MM what mode to record in your log, either whatever your radio's in, which is default mode, or you can tell it to follow the band plan. Or if you're doing a RIDI contest, all your logs are always going to be RIDI. Or if you're switching back and forth between different things, you choose this band plan or contest or radio mode. You play around with a little bit and you'll figure out what you want and how it does. Uh, Different people have different preferences, but where this can kind of come into play is when you're getting spots come in or whatnot, there's this little block here and you click on a spot and the spot may have in there that it's going to CW. You're in a sideband or in a CW contest, but the spot says it's FT8 or something. And if you click on a spot that's with this check that has FT8, when you jump to that spot, radio's going to shift to FT8 even though you're in a CW contest. So you don't necessarily want to use that. By the same token, if you're up here saying follow the band plan and you're in a CW contest and the band plan says up above 080 at the bottom of the band, it shifts to RIDI or digital or something. You click on a spot, somebody can be doing CW up there, and all of a sudden your radio, you think you're going to CW, will shift over to FT8 or RIDI or whatever the case may be for your band plan setup. So that's why this stuff's kind of important. And it's always a good idea. You get used to if you use spots a lot to check to make sure your radio doesn't change mode on you unless you're always this or always that, whatever the case may be. And here's an example of the band map where you can see the division between what the CW and the sideband modes are as it goes back and forth. There are other modes in there, and you can set and define them as you want later on. But that's just something to keep in the back of your head as you're operating. If you see the radio all of a sudden jumping on you and you get confused. By the way, that's the function. I go through this stuff fast, and my whole goal here isn't for you to remember all this stuff. It's to remember I'm having this problem, and I think I remember Kevin saying something about that. And oh, it's something about the band radio mode, and then it'll click, and you'll figure that stuff out. Now, most people won't use this a lot, just beginning out with N1MM, but these things here, by default, they're typically checked, and this is what N1MM uses, where it sends information from its program, what it reads out of your radio, what it reads out of the different equipment peripherals that are connected to it, sends it to other devices. And I'm not going to go into big deals about that. But the more of these you check, the more data is being sent. So this longer package data is going across on your network, and the greater your chances of having problems and issues with a less than modern computer. So if you have a lot of collisions, you might think about what are all you using there for that stuff. There's an entire appendix explaining how to use this type of stuff and information. Here's the score reporting. Some people don't like using it. Check that to report the real-time score. You don't need to put this in here anymore, I don't believe. I think it automatically sends it now. This is an old image, and you don't have to put your password in anymore. I think you still need your score username, but I'm not sure on that. No, that's part of the logging in things too, I think. Anyway, if you decide to use that, read in the manual about how it's all used now. I like to check this so that people don't know exactly what band I'm on. They can figure it out other ways, but this makes it a little harder. And this is just good to be able to watch a scoreboard and let other people know how you're doing. Even if you're not using the spots yourself, it uploads it onto the server so other people in your team or other Swamp Foxers can figure out how you're doing and give you encouragement and stuff like that. This has nothing to do with N1MM. It's one of them things that is Windows set up. I don't know if Linux has it or not, probably some similar thing. This was all new to me, probably old hat to most of you. But here is what Device Manager says I have for COM ports. And notice that there isn't any COM port 5 visible anywhere here. That's only the active COM ports. In Windows, there are actually hidden COM ports as well. And you can tell Device Manager to show you those hidden COM ports. And a COM 5 already exists. And what I had done on this particular case is I'd gone to, this is in the Microham software. I went to create a virtual COM port 5, and it didn't give me the option to create a virtual COM port 5, and I couldn't figure out why. I spent probably half an hour trying to figure out what was wrong before, oh yeah, there was a hidden COM port 5 over there. That's why it wouldn't let me do it. It's always a good idea to know what those hidden COM ports are. Here's another reason why. This was off the internet. Notice there are two COM 3s, one of them hidden, one of them actually active. Well, even though they're hidden, the drivers could be loaded and different for each one of these, and you can start having conflicts back and forth between them. And here's another pair that's set up there for as well. So one of the things that the geniuses that know about this stuff recommend is you get this thing set up, delete all these unwanted COM ports that you're not using, and just set it up for your contesting. I believe, and some of you computer gurus can talk about that, that you can set up different uh, machines, virtual machines, and configure this however you want. So if you're moving around from contesting to other stuff, you can add or delete them. Or another thing is just don't let your contest programs install to something that's already got a COM port on there that's not being used. But if you go there the first time and you haven't ever looked at it, you're going to see probably dozens of hidden COM ports that could be causing you conflicts and problems. Get rid of them if you don't need them. One other thing while I'm here is each one of these has a driver associated with it. And say you're not using this driver anymore and you go ahead and delete it, it may ask you, do you want to uninstall the driver too? Well, just because you don't need this one, that same driver might be powering another piece of equipment. It's pretty tedious to figure that out from what I see online, but just be aware that's a risk you run. By the same token, if you don't delete a driver that's not needed anywhere, it could end up later reassigning itself to the COM port you just are trying to create for something else and cause you problems too. Nothing's easy in Windows. Along drivers, some of the things, if you go into the COM3, we'll get to drivers in I'll do it now. The driver for this Silicon Labs is typically a what am I trying to think of? I don't know. I'll have to come back to that when I think of it a little bit. We'll just go over the power management. One thing that happens and gives people a hard time is by default, Windows likes to turn off devices that aren't in use, save power. So you want to go into each COM port that you're using and uncheck that checkbox so it doesn't turn the power off on you in the middle of a contest and have everything lock up on you because now your device isn't available for N1MM or something else to use. You get to that another place. You go into a COM port, it says advanced settings, and you got down here, it also likes to selectively suspend stuff that's not in use, not just turn it off. It could just put it to sleep for a while. And that checkbox is normally checked as well. And you want to uncheck all the COM ports you're using. Make sure that stuff's all taken care of too. And this disable modem at startup, if you've been using for computers for a while, you know that sometimes you turn your radio on or your device on, and all of a sudden your computer starts, radio starts transmitting and then goes off, and then it starts transmitting again. Many times that's coming because that box is not checked, and the old style of startup says, check to see if there's a modem on this COM port. So it sends a test signal to see if it can key anything. And of course, your rig's there, so it turns your rig on and off. Check that, and that'll eliminate a lot of those problems. Again, the port settings, make sure everything's the same as for what you want it to be. And some rigs, like my TS590, you also set the display in the radio itself, the speed, but then you have to turn the rig off and then back on again for it to actually change the rig speed. So you change it here, and then you go into the TS590 menu and it changes it to match that, and then nothing works, and you start ripping your hair out, except for people like me and KE4EA. We don't have much hair anymore, probably because of things like this. And we forgot to turn the radio on and off and reset the 590 so it could communicate at the new speed. That's not an N1MM program either. Sometimes people think it is. And adding to the joy of life, COM port numbers or other settings can mysteriously change. That happens things like a Windows update, or if you plug something in like an audio device and unplug it, or you unplug a device and you move it to a different COM port, the thing will automatically reassign to a new number. But you've already got that N1MM any config file set up, and it's expecting to find things on the old COM port number. So you got to be aware of that all the time. If things aren't working, check that you still have the same COM port numbers that you used to for everything. This thing about USB cables comes from K3CT, who's one of the developer teams. Do not unplug the USB cables and reinsert when a virtual COM port has stopped working. That'll always renumber the COM port. Change it. So don't say, oh, I'll try a different COM port number. Instead, reboot the computer, and while you're waiting, reread the first suggestion. Do not unplug the USB cables. And if you unplug a virtual COM port cable and insert it into another jack, it'll renumber the virtual port to a different COM port. And if you're using USB hubs, don't remove the hub power after the computer's turned up. That can be a source of changing virtual COM ports too. So it's not just Windows updates. When you start plugging things and unplugging things or moving power on and off, you can screw things up with the numbers. Allowing your computer to sleep or hibernate, oftentimes when it comes back, it'll renumber the COM ports on you. And when you're done operating, shut down the programs that access your virtual COM ports. Windows updating while virtual COM ports are open is not a good combination. So if you're done using something for contesting and has an open COM port, it's best to shut it down. Otherwise, Windows may renumber everything. A lot of times people think they got a problem with COM port, and it's really a RFI issue. And some virtual COM port numbers we talked, that was it. Silicon Labs driver for ICOM radios will allow you to fix the COM port to a specific port. So you can reassign different COM ports to new numbers too. I've done that quite regularly. Now, I'm going to show you a window. And as quick as you can, take a look at it and figure out which window has the focus of Windows. Should have taken you about half a second. I like, because these desktops and N1MM can get so complicated, plus you have other programs open. I like to make it so whatever window has focus is that nice, bright, thick red line. So I never have to wonder where my cursor is, move this around. Oh yeah, it's over there, and then go over here and click on the entry window. I know where everything is right off the bat. And you can do that. I don't think this has changed in the Windows themes. You can choose title bars and border and choose your own color for that. And you can also, there's third-party things you can change the font and the text size in those windows if you want to too. I've done that. A friend of mine, and this was Bill, N4IQ, said he preferred the external spectrum displays to the one used in N1MM. And I don't blame him, because I saw his was up at his station and it really looked a lot better. But he listened to me talking about the different things that you can do, how the N1MM spectrum display is integrated with uh, the spotting capabilities of N1MM. And he heard about it, so he gave it a shot. And now, even though he likes how the other one looks, he's shown some rate improvement by using the N1MM window. And here's what the N1MM thing looks like going horizontally. You can actually make these go vertically too. But this is a pretty busy display, and this is not a major contest, by the way. At the time, there wasn't a lot of active stations. But there are some things in here, and we'll dig into this a lot with spotting. But every signal that's above this blue line has a red square on it. You can actually use a key combination and jump from here to here to here. And you can't really do that with an external display all that well with N1MM. And these are workable signals. Blue means it's a non-mult. Red means it's a mult. But you can also tell this to show me in gray stations that I've worked if you want to, so that you know as you're tuning across, or even if you're not jumping, if you're tuning across it, then you know, oh, that signals somebody already worked, and you can go on from there. So there's a lot you can do with this that you can't do with an external display. And I'm giving it to you here in the setup so that you might consider setting it up initially instead of whatever you're using, and get used to using it. You'll appreciate it later on down the road. We hit up those. There are setup configurations for many radios and SDRs, how to use that in the N1M manual. And another thing, sometimes people say like I've got an AirSpy and I want to use the AirSpy option for the spectrum display window. There's a lot of reasons not to. One of the major ones being that the uh, computer data load from using anything other than N1MM SDR server to feed spots into that spectrum display is much, much higher if you use these other things than rather than setting up N1MM SDR server. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, read the manual and you'll see all about it in there. They've done major revamping of this server for those of you who tried it before and doesn't think it helped. They now do multi, I forget what the term is, but if you got like 24 cores, multi-threading is all set up in SDR server and it's really improved the speed tremendously. And if you don't do it, you start getting stuttering in the rest of your programs and delays and everything else, not just in the spectrum display. You run that risk. So recommend you get used to using that. Here's what the new spectrum source looks like. Boy, that went away. I wish that'd go away again. Here's where you set up the different source options and whatnot from there. Here's where you check to say use SDR server instead of the individual things. A lot of people choose their rig, but again, that's a better one to use. Figure out how to do that. Here's where you can set up the different displays and stuff. And then there are different options here. You can choose to display those things in the window with the different calls. Show everybody just mulch or mulch in the queues that you can still work, or don't show any call signs up there. Make it look simpler for you. And same with the red signal markers. You can play around with that, and you can really improve your rate by using those. Any questions? I know this is long. We're getting near the end a little bit now, a little more.
The spectrum window that I've never even knew it existed.
Yeah,
Um, do you need any extra hardware to utilize that? I'm just trying to follow what you were saying.
maybe.
Maybe.
Some radios have the ability to output the SDR based things, have the ability to output what they see, their I and Q data, to external programs. And those radios you don't need extra hardware for in every case that I know of. Maybe somebody knows something different. But like my TS590 doesn't have a band scope and it is not an SDR based thing. So I had to add an external thing like an AirSpy and an RSP1 to get that information to input into N1MM. So maybe depends what radio you have and what its capabilities are.
Okay. All right. Because I have my, as I'm watching this presentation, I have N1MM on another computer that I use just to, go look at the screens that you're showing us.
What are
Because
you using for a rig?
I'm using the 101D.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that will export things. Ed, you got one. What are you doing?
Yeah, this is Matt. I don't think you can do that.
I don't think
Okay.
so either.
Yeah, I did it,
All right.
or I did it with an external USB device because I had to. So out of my head, I think the 7610 can do it, the Lcraft K4 can do it, and maybe a couple of other icons. But the ASUS, unfortunately, they don't do it without a secondary device.
Ouch. Okay, I think once, don't quote me on this, that I read it is possible to be done. Uh, can the FTDX 101 output, it gives data to N1MM. And I think, no, I don't remember it. I'll have to go back and look at that. I thought there was a way somebody managed to get it working.
Did I cut you off? Did you want to say something different?
No, sorry. I thought I remembered reading somewhere there was a way to get it done, but I can't remember where it is. What type of external thing did you do?
I need to look what I have. Some of these USB dongles. Still have that around somewhere. Uh,
Okay. Well, since
SDR Play. That's what I have here.
okay, yeah, that may do it. That's what I got too for one of them. So yeah, you
Matt, when you use the SDR play, how do you set that up how do you set that up?
Um, Maybe we have to take it off that presentation. I need to. I mean, I don't have my FTDX 101 anymore, but
Uh,
I need to see if I still have some diagrams laying around.
I'm actually looking it up on Chat GPT as we speak.
All right. Good luck.
okay,
Thanks. Because I
and
use the internal monitor. Kevin, you asked me what do I do, and I don't use that functionality of N1MM. I just look at the scope on the radio.
yeah, uh, for those of you who don't haven't used this type of thing before, I used to do that all the time too. And then I discovered that it would be really, I just said, I don't need a spectrum display. I don't need that crap. But then now that I've used one, it's really significantly improved my rates. I can get short time rates, and by that I mean that last sometimes 20, 25 minutes doing straight search and pounce using these tools and things like that, over 100 an hour on search and pounce without having to turn to VFO. So it's worthwhile doing it if you can. All right. Matt brought up about he may still have some things laying around. That's where we're at here. Best practice, document everything and get it to working. I take a lot of screenshots. I've rearranged and I haven't renewed these, but this is what I had for my setup before I rearranged the whole shack. And if you get a problem, you can go back, oh, yeah, this is how I set this. This is how I set that. And I just save them as screenshots for things so I can refer them and put them all in actually print them out in case I had computer problems too. Put them on the computer to bring them up or print them out. This only covers the software part of it though. And Bill N4IQ shared this with me. This is how he has his two TS590s configured with his amps, and he's got skimmers feeding into his own station and all that. So it's almost excellent for you, or a very good thing for you to do to capture all this information about your station. Because I guarantee at one time or another, you're going to tear something apart and don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. Another useful thing for this is notice he put a date on this when it actually was done, so that if he rearranged anything and he had two or three of these laying around and he missed one, he's got the most recent copy. He knows when he's looking at things. Again, we covered about setting up an account sandbox and change it. Copy to another database. That's where that's done right there. This is on the off the entry window, the file program right there. And here's how you export down there. Go through that thing to export ADF from all the contests. And there's where you can export your call history. Now, I've done that once when I did a Michigan QSO party one year. I did fairly well in it. And I kept that call history file for what people were the previous year. I exported it and created my own call history file to look the thing up. And that was a good way to do that. If you get to use an N1MM very much, you're going to learn that your fingers can get sore over a very long contest, and there are a billion different key combinations, shortcuts to do stuff. I created this Excel spreadsheet for me. So when I want to talk about entering split, that's how I do that. Switch VFOs. Want to add a note, I use that shortcut. We'll teach you what some of these other things are, but I color coded it as well so that if I was working and I knew I wanted to find something SO2R related, they were all here in this yellow. If it's band scope, it'd be over here. If it's CW shortcuts, if I was sending CW from the keyboard instead of the paddles, all that. Pick out some of these things that you're good to, that you use all the time, and put them aside so they're easy, quick for you to reference. Here are some of the references I have. I'll leave this up so get them on the screen capture. People can freeze this if they're playing it back, whatever they want. If you want them later on, I'll go ahead and send them to you. And we talked about that. I guess I left that there. Any questions?
Yeah, I had one comment about the COM ports. My 890 uses COM port 3 and 4, the Silicon Lab COM ports,
Yeah.
but there's also menu settings inside the radio that have to be changed. The advanced menu settings for I think 19 and 20 have to be changed. And unfortunately, if you want to use the foot pedal to tune, you have to go into that menu and change it back so that it will send that way also. But the other comment is that the 890 will directly export the band scope to a monitor if you want to. I haven't, because it's right here in front of me. I put my reading glasses on and it's fine.
Great.
That's it.
Dave, AFP, glad you could make it. All right, any other questions? I guess we're done.
Thank you very much.
Anybody want to talk just ham in general or what?
I just counted up our scores from sweepstakes. If anybody's here that operated sweepstakes and hasn't sent it in yet, please do. We're about 22,000 points short of hitting that 1 million point mark that I talked about in my multiple pre-sweepstakes emails. So if you haven't submitted a score, please submit it.
This is Ron. I got 30,000 points I have to submit.
Yes.
Points to submit.
Yeah, we need I think it was I counted, what did I just say, 22,000 more, 25,000 more points to hit 1 million points.
I got 30,600 coming.
Yay.
That's great.
Thank you. Okay, and also while I'm here, I traded a couple of emails today with KB3 is the IFH that's doing our QSL cards. And so far to date, he's only received 2 orders from us. So if you're interested in ordering QSL cards, I sent out an email yesterday. Just go back on the reflector and look, and it'll give you the ordering information to order QSL cards if you have that desire. That's all I have, Kevin.
Glad to hear it. Dr. Jim, good to see you.
Hey, Kevin, I appreciate
Let me
your
get myself in.
presentation. It was very helpful.
Kevin, thank you so much for this.
I'm glad it helped. I hope you got it all. If not, Gary did a recording. He probably doesn't like my monotone voice, but he'll chop out some of the extra stuff too.
Gary, let us know when you get that. I was going to ask Gary to let us know when he has that recording up, because I've got to go back. You solved 2 or 3 problems for me, Kevin, when you were talking about changing the settings of some of the COM ports so that they don't turn off because of inactivity. There's sometimes I'll walk away from the radio for a half an hour, and I'll come back. And when I push the F1 key to send CQ, it's not there anymore. So I have to shut the program down, turn it back on, and I bet you that's what's happening.
Could well be.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll also say that Windows will also put sound cards to sleep as well. So you have to look there. And yeah, I'll alert the group when the video is up.
Well, I'm sorry this was a little disjointed. Things have been kind of rough around here, and I did some major revisions to it. I thought I was going to get to it today, but I didn't get a chance to smooth out some of them glitches. But hopefully I got the point across for everybody. The next, some people have left already, but the next ones coming up are the fun parts. They're about how to use it, how to make it dance and sing for you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you
Kevin,
very
you
much.
mentioned going through the presentation that kind of lit me up a little bit when you're talking about N1MM and OneDrive. I'm going through a nightmare right now about, it was the beginning of October, maybe a little bit earlier, that at the same time, I bought a new PC and I went from Windows 10 to Windows 11 all on the same time, which was a mistake. Yeah, so now I'm trying to get out of OneDrive, so I'm kind of like going through a nightmare, just trying to figure everything out, getting everything up from one drive onto another drive, and then I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'm in the middle of pulling my hair out, and I don't have much.
Well, that's what I've been there, done that, and I'm sure others have too.
Yeah, so I don't know if everybody uses OneDrive, but it's like a nightmare for me. I want to get rid of it.
I had the same issue recently on a new used computer that at least N1MM gives you the opportunity that it asks you where you want it installed.
Yeah,
You don't catch that question, then it goes to OneDrive on mine. But I had to
right.
reinstall it. But the other program, some guys operate
Yeah,
with that N3 FJP.
yeah,
I don't see a question on theirs.
yeah,
And I didn't know it was on OneDrive until I was in the middle of a contest and I see it
yeah.
bogging down.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, and you see all kinds of things moving around or disappearing on you, and they're not where they used to be. And I was migrating at the same time. I was migrating from one computer to a new computer, and it's like, oh man, shouldn't have done it that way. But hindsight.
Microsoft wants everything on their drive, hence the name OneDrive.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then Google comes right after that. They want everything. All right, but I appreciate it, Kevin. That was a good presentation, and some of the things I hadn't known before, and that keyboard sheet that you got on a spreadsheet, and I'd like to get myself a copy of that. So maybe I might just ship you an email or something.
Yep, go ahead.
If you don't mind. That's beautiful.
Okay, do you have Microsoft Excel?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll shoot it to you, the Excel file instead of a PDF. What I recommend you do is you take that and look at it and decide which ones you think you might use. I don't know, you probably don't do SO2R, for example. But in the manual, N1MM manual, there's if you type in shortcut keys, you'll go to the web page and just look down the list. See which ones there that you think you might want to use. Customize it, do whatever you want to do to it.
Yeah, sure. Good idea. Thanks.
There is one that you really might want to be sure you keep, and that's Control U, Control plus U. And if you're not familiar with that, Ed's thanked me a lot for that one and a few other people. If you do a lot of search and pounce operating, you're sitting there trying to break through, and it's best to go ahead, I do anyway, to type in the guy's call like G4AX, and he gives the number 432, and you call him and you don't get through. Well, now he's up to 433. You got to tab over to get to 433, redo it. Well, once you get to 432, if you hit Control U, it'll automatically go up by one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be a good one because I spent a lot of time doing that.
Yeah. It gets even better.
I used it a lot last weekend when I was searching and pouncing, and I didn't get through on the first call, and then I would just Control U at each time somebody else called him before I was able to break the pile up.
Yeah.
Now these guys are sick of me talking.
That's cool.
These guys are sick of me talking about it, but I also go to the next automation another step further. I have both a Stream Deck external device, and I have a game programmable game keyboard, and there are 5 function keys over on the left side of the keyboard, and I programmed one of them to be Control U, so I don't even have to hit Control U. I just push one of those macro keys on the left of my keyboard, and it automatically sends Control U. And you can use auto hotkey to remap something on your regular keyboard if you want. But no, I figured out that I used to operate 30, 36, 37 hours in 48-hour contest, and my fingers were just tied in knots trying to do all these shortcuts. And I said, there's got to be a better way. And that's when I started using all these shortcuts. It really saves time to have the external devices to do all these things.
Yeah. That's great.
That one suggestion alone, the Control U, that's worth a pile to me right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I
back
tell
to what
you-
I was saying, break that manual up and look through it. You'll find little things like that. I didn't read that anywhere except for I saw, oh man, that's killed me before. Those ideas come out and they really make a difference.
Yeah. That's a good one.
All righty, gentlemen. Well, I'm going to toddle off and call it a night. We get
Right.
up early. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
being here.
Kevin.
I'm glad I helped out.
Leave you, Kevin.
Thanks,
See you
man.
Hey, Kevin.
Really
All right.
appreciate it.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
Kevin.
Good night,
Thanks,
all.
Kevin.
Ralph,
Yeah.
Ron, welcome.
Thanks, Kev.
Welcome to Swamp Fox Club, Ron, Ralph.
Thank you.
Yes.